Hello, welcome to another episode of Daniel Lee Plastering and Rendering. Today I'm going to show you, this is a lovely bathroom and I'm going to be going through the steps we take when applying micro cement primer, the mesh and the very first coat of base. That is the base coat. So you can see a beautiful bathroom, or ensuite I should say. However, the lovely walls that you can see are getting a lot of condensation. So when the shower's on, they're getting a lot of moisture, and the paint is flaking away a little bit, and the customers are looking for a much more long-term solution. Enter micro cement. This is the base coat we're using. This particular product is a Relentless brand, and that is the colour that they are going for. It's sort of a sandy colour there. So obviously the first thing you do is fully protect everywhere. Now, micro cement needs a very good backing. You cannot apply this over plasterboard. This needs to go over a finished plastered room or wall or ceilings, whatever the case may be. It's an incredibly thin, durable layer that needs very good walls to go onto. As you can see, this is a lovely, beautifully plastered room, which is ideal for then applying the micro cement. That is the mesh that we're going to use, and you can see we've got some brand new rollers to apply the primer. So the primer and mesh go hand in hand with this particular product. So I'm using a waterproof wet room micro cement. There's all sorts of different types you can get. There's different finishes, and there's too many to go on to. So we'll just stick to the simple wet room waterproof micro cement. And you cut all the mesh to size. Now, because this is a very thin product, you don't want to overlap these rolls of mesh, so you cut them from floor to ceiling. I prefer scissors because it's less snaggy. Sometimes with a Stanley knife it can tear and leave threads of the mesh, whereas scissors, they're a bit more precise. You can see that is a tub of the primer there. It's pre-mixed. Everything you need is in there. Just give it a shake and pour it straight in. Again, I've got a lovely clean roller tray. With this product, you use a microfiber roller. Again, can be a bit overwhelming. There's so many different types of rollers out there, but if you just Google microfiber 9-inch roller, that is the best roller to use for these sorts of things. So you want to hold it in position, and then the brilliant thing about this primer, it literally glues the mesh to the wall whilst priming it at the same time. It can be a little tricky sometimes at first. Much easier with two people. One person can hold it, but it can be done on your own. And it really is as easy as that. Don't forget your edges. So you saw I had a lovely little 2-inch paintbrush with a nice long handle. And you do remember it is a primer, so you want to do all your edges as well. And in the corners, you can actually use plasterer's scrim or some other self-adhesive scrim. So now that that's all primed, we are ready to apply the base coat. And you can see the base coat, this is the first base coat, first of 2 base coats. We're just going to do the first one today. It actually comes pre-mixed in a lovely bag there. Again, a little bit of a faff to get out. Just give it a squeeze and pull and twist as best you can. And then we will empty all of that into that tub. One full tub should do about 10 to 15 square meters. It says 10 square meters, but in my experience it tends to go a little bit further. And the trick to this stuff is when applying it, it goes on so thin. So if you're used to internal plastering or more traditional plastering, it can be a bit of a shock to the system. You don't need a hawk. It's that thin. You can use a spatula and a trowel, and the spatula in this instance can be your hawk because the gear goes that far. Now there are sort of techniques to put this on, however the very first base coat is less important. It's going to be completely buried and invisible. The key crucial step to applying the first base coat is getting it on thin and flat. So this wants to go on no thicker than the reinforcement mesh underneath that you can see. I hope you're finding this entertaining and useful, helpful in some way. Please like, subscribe if you do find this at all interesting, as there'll be many more. I'll also be showing the second coat of the base coat along with the final colour coats and the varnishes and hardeners to use after as well, all coming in the next couple of weeks. So don't forget to like and subscribe. And back to the applying the base coat. Remember, it is very important, more so than traditional plastering and rendering, to keep your tools clean as well. So do keep a bucket with some clean water. I find either a microfiber cloth or a sponge probably the best things, as opposed to the old school paintbrush. However, if that's all you have, that will do the job, but I've just found in my experience a microfiber cloth, it keeps things just a bit cleaner. But yeah, you can see me cracking on here. Again, you want to be keeping it as flat as possible. I know I keep going on about flat, but it really is crucial to keep it the thickness of the grain of the micro cement, and that will help lessen the line. The flatter it is, the less lines there'll be, the less trail lines you'll have to sand down. Everything just goes so much better. Well, I hope you've found this useful. I'm going to skip forward now to the bathroom finished, and that is now had its base coat, just the first coat mind you, and we'll be back with more videos showing you the next stages. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. This is a micro cement top coat that we will be applying today. So the first thing we do is give the base coat a good old scrape with wallpaper scraper. It's more of a sort of a check, a light check. So you just go over the wall sort of methodically, one end to the other, just checking for any little lumps and clumps that you might have missed. And then as soon as you've finished giving that a check over, we're ready to apply the top coat. Now you don't need to prime the base coat, it's all literally ready for the next coat to go straight over the top. And this is the base coat we are using. You can see it's a stucco finish, which has slightly more depth, sort of looks perhaps a little bit more cloudy. Some people describe it as a bit more pattern. And that is the colour the customer's chosen, and that is also a sample board that I'll be doing. It's always handy to get a sample board as and when I remember to do them. So the first thing we do when we open up the tub, I'll give the lid a scrape around, so I don't want to waste all that gear on the lid, and I will cut and scrape around the sides of the buckets as well, making sure to give it a good wipe and a good clean. It's very important to keep everything very clean when using a coloured micro cement, any of the polished plasters really. So I will give that a mix for a good at least a couple of minutes, probably 2-3 minutes. If you are adding colour to this, you will mix it significantly longer, 5 maybe even 10 minutes, to make sure the colour is evenly distributed. Remembering always to use an airless mixer, of course. There are lots of different types of airless mixers. You don't have to. Then we're ready to apply the coloured top coat. Remembering, of course, to use very clean and dry trowel. I like stainless steel. It's slightly flexible steel. And then a spatula is what you would use instead of a handboard or a hawk that the gear goes on, because you only need a relatively small amount at a time, and then you can apply it right to left or left to right. In this instance, I'm applying left to right. However, quite often I will apply it right to left. Remembering the key to this is keep it thin and flat. So you only want to be as thick as the grain, which really is thin. It goes on very thin. So you will apply it with the trowel. It's easier to apply a bit more than you need, and then go back over it, pulling a little bit off, and then maybe going over it again 3-4 times. Remembering you want lots of sort of short, sharp movements on this one. You don't need very long, sweeping trowel lines, because the trowel lines will show through, or certainly can show through with this vinyl coloured top coat. You'll find as well, and you see there, I put a lot more than I needed on there just to get across, and now I'm going back over it again, effectively thinning it down and flattening it in, making sure the whole area's got a nice covering. This particular system, the stucco effect, will have 2 coats of this top colour coat, one basically after the other. Make sure as well to keep your tools clean and dry. So somewhat counterintuitively, with the polished plasters, including the micro cements and the Venetian plasters, you want to keep your trowels clean and dry, whereas with more traditional plastering and rendering, you would keep your trowels much more wet. You would be wetting them with paintbrushes and cleaning them and wetting them, and you wouldn't necessarily dry them. But you do not want to dilute the top coat or any of the polished coats with water, and because it goes on so thin, even the wet water sitting on a trowel, it would be enough to dilute the top coat. So make sure your trowel is kept clean and dry. I like to use cloth or sponge. You can even use white or blue roll, work very well as well. And also when applying the top coat, whilst you do work sort of methodically, you want to start in one corner and work your way around, you want to do one wall at a time. And you can see that I've now finished that first coat, cleaned off all the tools, cleaned around the bucket, and now I am basically doing the same process again pretty much immediately. So because this is a stucco finish, that means it sort of has more depth and shows the pattern. It's sort of a cloudy look. You want to apply damp on damp. So you get that first coat on, and while it's still damp, you apply the second coat. This typically, you've got about 20 minutes to an hour, typically. That's 20 minutes to 60 minutes once you have finished the wall. So you do give it a little bit, depending how long the wall has taken for you to get it on. If it's only taken you sort of 20 minutes to get the wall on, then maybe give it an hour. If the wall's taken you an hour, then maybe give it 20 minutes. But I've been able to just get straight back on this. The second coat is the most crucial. So the second top coat, I should say, this is going to show a bit more pattern. You may find this goes on even thinner, and you're going to start noticing your trowel marks might start showing through here. So this is where we like to keep a random short trowel movements. And you can see I'm really pushing the gear into the existing and keeping it really flat as well. I hope you have found this somewhat informative and useful, and please like, subscribe, and any questions, do feel free to ask them in the comments. So that has now had the final coloured top coat. Not the end, there are more videos to follow covering the next stages to make it completely watertight. So I will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. You are watching the final part of the micro cement system. This is a ensuite bathroom, and we are doing a waterproof micro cement walls here, and I am currently on the final sanding of the final colour coat of marble. So this has had 2 base coats with reinforcement mesh, a further 2 coloured coats of the chosen colour, which in this instance is a lovely stucco white. Stucco meaning in this instance sort of has a grey, cloudy bits and specks sort of that show through. And we will now be doing the 2 final sealants. So as you can see, I'm giving it all a final sand with the colour coat. It wants a nice 240 grain sandpaper, works wonderfully well. This is just before in preparation for the sealing, and this is the epoxy sealer that I will be using. It's a 2-part sealer. Because everything we're doing is a high-end finish, we need to ensure we're using only the cleanest tools and equipment, and also working with white. So you can see I'm cleaning my roller there quite thoroughly. I did clean it before, so it shouldn't be too bad. And I will also be putting a brand new microfiber roller on it as well. Unfortunately, the sealers are so tough and brutal that I'm yet to find a cost-effective way to reuse my rollers. So basically each coat of epoxy sealant requires a brand new microfiber roller. I also put a brand new liner in the paint tray as well, and you can see that was an old paintbrush. I like a brand new paintbrush for the edges as well. Again, this epoxy is brutal on your paintbrushes and rollers. That is the part 2 there. The customer has chosen a gloss finish. So that's one litre. That should do about 10 square meters. You only mix up as much as you need, but in this instance I need about that. So I can mix up all of that. So, and my tray can hold over a litre, so I can just pour it straight into my paint tray, which is quite useful. If you're doing a much bigger area, you might want to do it in a clean bucket. Don't want to waste any, it's not cheap stuff. And now with this, you mustn't mechanically mix this. You don't want to get air. You really want to minimize the air. So definitely don't use a big mixer or mechanical mixer. All you need to do is give it a simple, gentle stir with, in my case, I've got a lovely clean paint stirrer there, but a stick will do. Anything really to just give it a gentle stir, and that will mix the 2 liquids. They mix incredibly easily. It doesn't take long at all, and that will help just bond the sealant. Once this has happened, you've got approximately 45 minutes now to use this before it starts sort of setting and reacting and turning. Remember to clean your tools. Very important. Everything in micro cement is clean, clean, clean. You don't want anything getting in. You're working with a decorative finish. And you can see there, I'm filling up the roller, and I always start at the bottom. And when applying this with a roller, it's quite different from how you would apply paint. So start at the bottom and work your way up, because you will be effectively slightly staining it as you're sealing it. So any drips from up above could leave stain lines if you start at the top and go bottom. So always start at the bottom. You want to work in short random movements. This will help hide the roller lines, because what you don't want is a big roller line showing through your marble or micro cement. This is very high suction for the very first coat, and you want to go over the area at least 4 or 5 times, like you can see I'm doing there in a random. I'm going over it and over it and over it, all random, making sure it's really pressed in, stopping, making sure there's no drips, no spills, but also a very thorough coating. And then as I do this as well, once I've completed the wall, one wall, say approximately 10-15 minutes, say, I will then go back to that wall and go over it again with the same roller, but without putting any extra sealant on the roller, just to check and roll in, make sure you want to sort of minimize the air bubbles, try and keep it nice and flat. You don't want any drips, and then doing that will just help give it all a nice even coating without showing. What you don't really want is any brush marks or roller lines. I should also warn you, it's an epoxy sealer, very strong and quite potent, so it does have quite a smell. Now once the sealer has been applied, it will need at least 12 hours, so ideally leave it a day, come back the next day to apply the final coat. And before you apply the final coat, which is the exact same procedure again, you give it a light sand. So exactly what I'm doing then, an orbital sander, 125mm orbital sander works fantastically. Perhaps smaller detail sanders for your little bits, or you can even just use a bit of sandpaper in your hands. But at grade, I found 240 grade sandpaper works beautifully, and you're just checking for any bits of dust or debris that might have floated into the wall as it's curing that you sort of not noticed. And then once that's done, have a good clean up, a good tidy, remove all the tapes, and you are finished. And that is one beautiful stucco white micro cement bathroom. Now that is fantastic stuff. That can take a good soaking. It's anti-mold, anti-fungicide. It's fantastically resilient to all water, moisture, mold, damp. Just amazing for bathrooms, kitchens. They also make fantastic feature walls. They're super hardy. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. See you on the next one.